Scrappy Peeps, Suzanna here today to share with you this layout for Spiegel Mom Scraps. I created a shaker pocket, which is the theme of the month, using this particular sequence. It's called Cunning One from Spiegel Mom Scraps, and if you go shopping in the store to buy it or anything with it, if you use that code there, Suzanna15, Suzanna with a Z, you can get 15% off. So this is the layout that I created using that particular sequence and those three pictures. So I actually didn't separate them. They're three pictures together. And I was inspired by this paper from PinkFresh Studio, and what I wanted to do was I wanted to recreate those green gradated, I'm going to call them rectangles, and so what I did was I traced, or I used scratch paper, you can see there, and I ripped or cut, I actually used my ruler to cut the paper down to size and then overlapped them with temporary adhesive so that I could then recreate that same shape at a different angle. And you could see I thought of doing it top to bottom, but now what I ended up doing is I ended up turning the papers at a right angle, and so I am actually going to create that same grid at a 90-degree angle. So what I'm doing here is I am just drawing pencil lines so that I can go upstairs to the sewing machine and use black thread to recreate those lines. And I'm actually going to turn one of those lines into a shaker pocket because the theme this month at Spiegel Mom Scraps is shaker pockets. And so I thought that the Cunning One sequence mix was perfect to add into a shaker pocket. So that is just a piece of transparency film, and I am going to cut it down to slightly bigger than the size of the pocket size that I want, and I'm going to leave enough to overlap to the back side of the layout. So I'm going to sew 4 of the edges, and then I'm going to use double-sided sticky tape, which you'll see as I create this pocket to finish off that pocket and seal it closed. So that is where the pocket will go, and those are the sequins that are going to go into that shaker pocket for just a fun element to the layout. So I'm going to run upstairs and I will come back and the stitching will be done in black thread. That's the front. You can see where I've done that stitching. And that's the back of the layout, and I need to clean up these edges here. So all I do is I use some paper tape. It's actually medical tape to anchor down those edges and just get them so that when I slide the layout in and out of the protective pocket, I don't have any loose threads that catch and or create issues with the layout there. And then I have that opening that is created by the transparency and the film. But because it's transparency film, it's not easy to fold, so I use my scorer to score that edge there so that it's easy to fold over and seal that pocket off once I've got the sequins in there. Now, just to add a little different element to the shaker pocket, I also typed out Lucky twice in all caps and then twice in all lowercase, and I'm going to insert into that pocket because this layout is about St. Paddy's Day, or St. Patrick's Day. And I wanted to just have something fun to throw in there with the sequence. So primarily, that the bulk of the sequence that I've got in there is Cunning One. I am going to add a little bit of green acres because I wanted a little bit of the darker green sequences that you find in the green acres mix. So just enough sequence that there's something fun to shake around in there. And now I'm going to get some double-sided tape from American Crafts, and that is just going to seal the pocket closed with the sequence mixes and those 4 word tabs that are kind of fun to have that white against the green in there. So again, these are pictures of my kids last year on St. Paddy's Day. Michael, my husband, always brings home treats from work for us. And so there's a picture of the cool cupcakes, some cookies that we had bought, as well as the kids in their green. So that background paper, that really cool green, this is an idea that I had when I saw the paper at Creativation. So I've been sitting on this idea for some time waiting to get the collections. So the 2 collections that I'm using here are A Case of the Blahs as well as Let Your Heart Decide from PinkFresh Studio. And I thought it would be cool to use this stamp because it is a, oh, what's the word? When you've got diamonds and the X's through it, I can't think of the word off the top of my head. Sorry about that. But it's kind of what I associate with St. Paddy's Day. And so I decided to stamp it and then off stamp it just the way that the greens go from dark to lighter. It was kind of cool the way that the stamp went from black to gray to sort of even lighter gray. So that was a cool play on the repetition that is found in the pattern paper. And now I want to back the photo with a couple of these pattern papers, and I'm using papers from the 6x6 paper pads. This was a piece that I got when I was at Creativation, and I actually thought of doing a grid layout with it, but rather than cutting into a whole piece of 12x12, I thought just that little piece would be really cool to create a border down the bottom of the layout there. And again, this is another piece that I got at Creativation. It was actually from the, I think it was from the Make and Take, the day that I was hanging out with the gals over there at PinkFresh Studio. So I am going to use that gray and cut it down, and that's going to be kind of create a shelf for the left-hand side of the photo. And then I have this leaf that I thought the floral would be fun to tuck in behind the photo, but it actually doesn't angle the right way, and it becomes a perfect little element to tie those frames, those stitched frames down at the bottom of the layout together later on. You'll see how I do that. So I have the gray grid floral behind the left-hand side of the photo, and then I'm going to use that floral black and white pattern paper that you see sitting on top of the photos there to back the picture as well. It creates a nice frame around the pictures, as well as sort of breaks up that green that's in the background of the pattern paper there. So there's that, and then I'm going to find a little bit of that gray you can see there to just sort of tie the left-hand side layer into that right-hand side of the photo there, and it's just a teeny bit poking out at the end there. So I'm going to leave the shaker down the bottom, but I am going to cover up part of it, and that by using that scallop, that green scallop, I am anchoring the page just a little bit. Oh, I had a tag that I've lost. That's what I'm looking for, is a green tag that I pulled out of the die cut ephemera pack, and I couldn't find it, but I knew that I had pulled it out specifically. There it is. It had dropped on the floor as I was shifting things around, I think when I went upstairs to do some sewing. So I really wanted to incorporate this tag into the layout. You know how you become obsessed with things sometimes, and you know you want to use it, you just can't figure out the right way to use it. That's kind of what I'm playing with there. So I run that scalloped border that I fussy cut through my X sticker maker, and I know I want to put it down the bottom to just ground, to tie that dark green in the top to the dark green of the bottom. I also wanted a few of these black elements to punctuate the page. You've got a lot up the top there with that strip of pictures, and I needed something with some weight down the bottom to just sort of balance that layout out, and that's what this scallop ends up being, along with this little cluster of embellishments that I'm going to put down there. So that is a vellum shamrock with some gold bits through it, and the best way to adhere vellum is to actually put the adhesive on the pattern paper or the surface to which you are going to adhere the vellum, and that was a Prima glue pen, and then just stick the thing on top, and it doesn't, you can't see the adhesive on the back of the thing. So I found two houses. I really liked that puffy house, and it went well and tied together with the house down the bottom here that says "Let's stay home," because we are homebodies, and we typically have somewhere we need to be the next day, so going out is not an option for us, and we stay home and celebrate these sorts of things. I am now going to use some of these hearts. To me, a shamrock looks like it's made from hearts, and so I created a 3-leaf clover. Actually, I started with a 4-leaf clover, but I didn't like the 4-leaf clover, so I'm going to move it up to the top there, and then I'm going to draw with a pen just the stem in so that those 3 hearts look like a shamrock, which I thought was kind of cool. So I've committed to these elements and I'm going to adhere them down. So this is my absolute favorite collection from Creativation. I fell in love with, I've always liked PinkFresh Studio, but I absolutely fell in love with these collections and couldn't wait to get them. And there is an unboxing of the PinkFresh Studio collections on my YouTube channel if you are interested in seeing that. And I'll link you to it right here. If you just look at that little space to the top right of your screen there's a link to my unboxing of these collections. So I just want to incorporate a few more elements. Again, I want some weight down the bottom of that layout, so I have this really awesome epoxy black heart with some gold threaded through it, and that ties in nicely with the scallop as well as with the hearts that I've used in other places in the layout there, and it just creates a bit of weight down the bottom of the layout. And what will really tie this all together are going to be the black puffy stickers that you see poking out from my collection of goodies over there on the left-hand side that I will use to title the layout with. So I'm still fussing with that green label that I really want to use and incorporate somehow. I really didn't want to cut it, as I'm going to end up doing. I wanted to use the whole label, but sometimes you have to give in and do what looks best, not necessarily what you want to do. So I used a little bit of twinery thread, black and white variegated, and again, just for a little bit of that shot of black that I wanted to add to the layout. So that's where I'm going to end up using that leaf there. It looks like a random element, but when you shake around the shaker and there's stuff that moves in there, it actually works perfectly where it is there. And it also gives you that illusion between the shaker, the leaves, and the house and the shamrock of that long rectangle, kind of like the rectangle that I have up the top where the pictures are there, that photo cluster. I found another label. One of the things about these labels is that as you try and pull them off, if you don't get the backing, you actually do end up pulling the paper layer off the backing, the sticker. So what I was doing was just sticking those back down. I really wanted to try and incorporate one of these phrase stickers in, but really I didn't need it, and why put it just because you want to if it doesn't work. So a little bit of gold there, just a little gold heart to tie that all together. So that, my friends, is going to be the bulk of the layout. I'm just going to title it, and I title it Shenanigans because that's what we were up to, was St. Paddy's Day Shenanigans. And in usual Suzanna fashion, I'm going to do the title shuffle because I don't leave myself enough room and need to shift that down to the left there. So that is my layout for Spiegel Mom Scraps. Again, if you use Suzanna 15 at the store, you can get 15% off your purchase. Enjoy the close-ups, and I thank you for joining me today. Please come back for the next 2 Thursdays, and I have some other fun shakers to share with you. Take care.